Welcome, everybody. This is Matthew Gates with In the Building LA, your online source for news and information on the people, projects, and policies reshaping our community. I'm joined today by Chef Bryce Fluellen. Chef Bryce has fought for food justice and social equity for more than 20 years. He is currently the executive director for the Social Equity Franchise Program at Everytable. Prior to his role at Everytable, Chef Bryce was the Community Impact Director for the American Heart Association, the Director of Operations for Magic Johnson Enterprises. He has also been an entrepreneur, owner, and operator of his own catering company. And so for the balance of his career, he has done just about all of it as it relates to food service, and definitely honored and happy to have him on. How are you doing this morning?
Man, I'm great. Happy to be here. Congratulations on what you're doing and really sharing the information, with our community.
I appreciate it.
Large.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So before we dive into what you're currently doing, could you share with the people watching a little bit of your backstory and how you got started in the restaurant business?
It was an independent jazz restaurant owned by an African-American lady actually named Shirley Kavanaugh, and her son named Xavier, and then her sister was the bartender. He said, "Hey, I know you're going to Howard University, so that means you're pretty bright. Have you ever waited tables?" No. Like, go ahead. No type of let me menu, whatever. So it was a disaster, as to be expected, Matthew. People were asking me for cognac, and I was bringing vodka and probably dropping stuff.
Sink or swim, right?
Yeah, sink or swim. And so at the end of the night, the bartender, his auntie and her sister she said, "Man, I know you want to work. You seem like a great young man. Why don't you just start coming in early? I'll help train you." Fast forward, I ended up being like the supervisor, worked there for almost 3 years. And by the end of it was a supervisor, and then also would always talk to the chef and kind of learn and talk to him about his creation of recipes, and just really tried to be a sponge, man. And true to what my friend's word, I mean, sometimes there was one night I made like $3,000 in tips. So it was like you go in, and in college, like I was tired of eating top ramen. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Like, there was only so many variations of top ramen that I was, creating. So at that point,
that's where you get those culinary skills from. You start experimenting with flavors, right?
Right. We could do top ramen and hamburger. We top ramen and tuna. Like we were top ramen.
Yeah.
So and then after college, just really kind of stayed in two worlds. One, education world. So I was working at a school. This is fast forwarding a little bit, but started working in schools and teaching, and then also working at restaurants at night. And one time I had a conversation with my father. This is by the time I was in LA, and he said, "You're working like 15 hours a day. You probably should. That's not sustainable. You probably need to figure out which route you want to take is from a career standpoint." And then, as soon as day after he said that, I was having a conversation with the owner of the school. And she was saying that even though my kids were learning, that it was really about more so teaching to the test. So that was my signal to, making an exit out of that. And I really started working in the restaurant world, worked with independent concepts and operations. Then a recruiter from Starbucks called me. And this is when Starbucks was still growing and still considered small. So small for them at that time was like 800 to 1,000 stores. Now they're at 21,000.
Right.
So it was but it still had that small feel, and recruited me in as a manager, and then worked my way up to district manager. And then I had a friend, actually my ex-sister-in-law, she was working for Magic Johnson, and at the time he had just started his partnership with Starbucks, and he already had the theaters. And I said, "Hey, do you have anybody on your side that really understands the Starbucks business and can represent the Magic brand and really understand, our customer base?" And she said no, but I'll talk to him. That turned into maybe a year later, and I just kept bothering her. She was probably like, "Look, if you ask me one more time about Magic Johnson, I'm going to curse you out," right? I said, "But no, I mean, I got the vision. That's my favorite athlete. I love what he's doing. I'm working for Starbucks. I mean, it's all coming together." And she finally set up that meeting. I drove all the way from Oakland to LA Friday and met him like Saturday morning on Wilshire. talked to him, about his business and what I would like to do and what my vision was. And then he said, "Hey, I want you to talk to my president of Johnson Development Corporation, who really manages that piece." And we spoke, and then he said, "Hey, I got some things I'm thinking about. Here's my personal number. Call me. Let's continue the conversation." So Matthew, I would call him in the morning at his house. He would be gone. And his wife was like, "Hey, you just missed him." And then I would call him at the office. He's just out. This happened for about 6 to 7 months. But I was persistent and, I had a vision. And then so finally he was like, "Look, so here's what we're thinking. We have Starbucks, which is our largest joint venture that's growing. We have Fridays and we have theaters. We're looking somebody who can help us represent all of those brands." And then they offered me something in that, that was my, my time there, which was like getting 2 MBAs.
I want to stop right there real quick because that's a lot to unpack. Just going back to the beginning, right? This whole idea that you're a college student who at that point in time, like most college students, you're trying to figure out what's next. What are you interested in? What do you want to do? And an opportunity came in front of you to just go make really good money in the restaurant business. And you turned that into a career.
Right.
Just by being a sponge, like you said, spending a lot of time just picking up tidbits of information from the experienced people around you. Fast forward, you have an opportunity to talk to some folks at Starbucks and eventually with Magic Johnson Enterprises. And it's the vision that you were able to create along the way matched with the perseverance and persistence to just keep knocking at the door that, somebody, is directly connected to Magic Johnson Enterprises, but that wasn't like the door didn't open because of that. Right. That you still had to be diligent and banging down that door and picking up the phone day after day after day for months on end to finally get the opportunity to sit down and share your vision. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I didn't want to gloss over that because that's, at the crux, I think, of what has probably made you successful all along the way and everything you've done has been this idea that, you're soaking up knowledge from the people around you to apply to the next opportunity, but then you're just dogged in your determination and efforts to create the opportunities you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, you encapsulated that a lot better and summarized it than I did. So I think it's a couple of things to your point. One, it's having a vision, but being persistent and understanding that just having the vision is one thing, but executing it is another, right? And so, putting in the work and being okay with people telling you no, but still moving forward and knowing that you're trying to get to a certain destination. And a destination may not look like what you visualize, but you're still headed that way.
Were you always that way?
Yeah, I've always had a vision of, what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be. I'm thinking about the restaurant industry. Like you said, I didn't know I wanted to be a career, but I knew that I really had a love and a passion for service, one thing, and then also the energy and just really meeting different people and being able to provide something that makes people happy. And then the fast-paced nature and the way in which food business is that you always have to be on your toes. Things are always changing. It's never, and some people don't like this, but it's never like, just mundane thing that happens where what's going to happen every day. And so those things I knew, those that resonated with me and being inspired by, Shirley Kavanaugh was the owner, who was a Black woman who was running her own restaurant, which was pretty prominent. We had people like the mayor of DC at the time, Marion Barry, would come through, all these legislative officials, entertain. Got to see Miles Davis, Betty Carter. So being inspired by all these people, these Black folks that were coming, that were doing tremendous things. And then just looking at, her vision and how she, fought, for that business. She was the only Black-owned restaurant owner of DuPont Circle, which is an area in Northwest in DC at the time. I'm seeing her do it. I'm seeing them do it. I can probably do that one day. And so those are the things that, we talk about when I talk to young people or, people don't realize, like when you see somebody who looks like you that's functioning in a space, it opens up the possibilities of what you can be and do. So that's very important that sometimes people miss.
100%. You can be more than what you see on TV, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I spent some time managing a Denny's here in Culver City while I was working my way through school.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It was dramatically different from my retail experience in that when people came to the manager in retail, it was always a complaint.
Yes.
Right? People don't show up to a restaurant wanting to be miserable. Sometimes you can make them miserable, right? But generally people show up wanting to have a good time and wanting to enjoy themselves. So completely different experience. So for a lot of the last 20 years, you really spent a fair amount of your energy trying to tackle, I guess, accessibility issues related to food and health implications related to food deserts. How did you get involved in that fight? Like, how did you pivot, or how did your experiences kind of marry with your desire to want to really create change in, I guess, urban communities with lack of access to quality food?
Yeah, I would say the first part of my career, so like the experience with Magic Johnson, it was about more so about creating equity and accessibility for our community. And so what that meant for Magic is like, hey, we deserve, to have the same things in our neighborhood that you see in the West Side or neighborhoods. We have, understanding our consumer spending habits, and then also was providing economic opportunity. So those Starbucks and Fridays and theaters that were in our communities provided, entry-level jobs and even built to careers for some folks. I had a conversation via social media not too long ago with a young man who I got him his first job, and it was at Magic Johnson Theaters. And I'd forgotten about that, but he said, and then that helped me. He said, first of all, I wasn't getting any callbacks or interviews in any businesses around the neighborhood. And so I was frustrated being a young man wanting to work. And then having that job gave me exposure. He met Quentin Tarantino. He met so many different people, he was saying, but it also planted in me, to build a career in the industry. And so there were, hundreds of people that we were able to get jobs. I ran into a young man who was still working at Starbucks, and he's been able to utilize a 401k and save enough money over the years to buy his first house. So it was really about that, that seed that and that vision that Magic had.
Yep.
And so the health piece came later on in my career, and it was both personal and then, what I wanted to do, professionally. Once I, from a personal standpoint, my family has been impacted by heart disease and stroke. I've lost like 5 people that I can think of immediately to those. My mother was one, a couple of aunties that are close to me. And then my health started to be impacted. So I really started to look at, okay, so can I live a healthier life? And when I started doing catering, actually, I had my catering business, and I was doing catering for American Heart Association. And the executive at the time, she said, hey, I want you to do a healthy cooking demo for seniors. And then when I did that, I met my former boss there, and she said, hey, we have gardens that we grow in underserved areas to really teach kids the importance of growing your own food and the health benefits. But we never had anybody kind of teach them how to actually cook it and why it's important and how you can cook it healthier. And so I did a couple of those from a volunteer perspective, Matthew. And that, after I did a couple of those, I said to her, that should be your next program, a healthy cooking program. And she said, hold that thought. I planted that seed. And then a year later, she said, hey, some funding, we were going to bring you in as the first chef to implement and lead the healthy cooking program for kids and teens in South and East LA. And so immediately, Matthew, when I started doing that, really understanding, the implications and the numbers of childhood obesity, diabetes, heart disease that I was seeing in our young people and in our community, particularly that were disproportionately impacting brown and Black folks. Mm-hmm. I found out real quickly that it's one thing to make people aware and teach them, how to eat healthier and why it's important. That's just a piece of the puzzle. But there's all these other systemic barriers that are created in our communities that create these obstacles on why we can't be healthier. And so that led me down the path of back to school and started connecting with the folks that have been doing the work all the time, like Los Angeles Food Policy Council, Community Services Unlimited, which is an organization that was started back, as an offshoot of the Black Panther Party from the 60s. And a lot of people tend to forget that a big piece of the Black Panther Party was about health and nutrition.
Free meal program and
the free breakfast program, right? Yep. And so to your earlier question, it just became, okay, I need to really do my part on making sure that our communities are healthier. Now that I have this knowledge and understanding, and I don't have it all, but I see what the issues are. How can I move the ball forward and help those, that are fighting towards food justice? And this is where I met Sam, who's the CEO of Everytable, like doing my work with AHA. And so, hey, man, that's just been, what, my belief system has brought me to. Like, hey, you should always be trying to, those who should be trying to always reach back and pull people up and sharing information and moving the needle forward. So
100%. And for those who don't know, Everytable, and I believe I got it right, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's kind of a subscription-based food provider is working to transform food systems by making delicious and nutritious food accessible to everyone, everywhere, and really doing that by making scratch-made food at fast food prices. I got that correct?
Yeah, I'll amend it a little bit. So, the mission of Everytable is to make healthy, affordable food accessible for all. And that within itself is, if you understand, that's a revolutionary act. And so we have a number of ways in which we do that. The one that you talked about, our subscription, actually has just started to grow, the last 6 to 8 months. So we have subscription-based model where you can get, $5 to $8 meals delivered to your home in a lot of areas across LA County. But we also have retail stores. So we have a store. Our first store was near USC on Hoover. Yep. We have a store in Watts and Compton. We have a store downtown.
Let's be clear. Like when you talk about a $5 to $7 meal, we're talking like a elote salad, salmon adobo, curry chicken, wraps, breakfast, desserts. Like this is like real good, high quality food. Like
nutritious, like you said, nutritious, fulfilling food. Grain bowls, like you said, whole, salads and wraps between $5 to $7, $8, made fresh every day. So we have a centralized kitchen in Vernon where all of our food is made, and then it's just, delivered out through subscription, through to our stores. And then another part of our business is have a smart fridge. So that business is where you can have a Everytable smart fridge in your office or space. And it's, as soon as you put your card in, you pull it out, you're charged for it, and then we come and refill it on a weekly basis. And then the last thing I shared is our food service. And so we've been making an impact, and we have, contracts with, providing food for folks living in homeless shelters or, experiencing homelessness, to food insecure college students from Santa Monica, where we give them meals at a certain price point and they deliver them directly to wherever they live, since, school is remote, hospital workers. So, but at the core of what you do, our mission is that we believe healthy food is, a human right. And so we want to disrupt the industry by making healthier food available and accessible to all. And affordability piece is really big because a part of, when I was doing my work with AHA, one of the things that I used to always hear inevitably, in the neighborhoods that I worked, is that I would love to eat healthier, but there's nothing around here. And then whatever there is, it's not affordable.
Yeah,
that's something that you hear not only here, but in the, when I talk to friends and family throughout the country, that's a lot of what they say. Like healthier food had become almost, like our CEO said, Sam said, like a luxury product. And so how do you disrupt that, which is what we've done. And Sam figured that out. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I believe at one point in time, they're operating 9 locations across the city. I think some of those locations have temporarily closed, I think, because of COVID, right?
Yeah.
But you're currently operating. There is a physical location that folks can go to, I think in South LA, in Compton, and in Watts, right?
Yeah, our store is South, and our Hoover store is still open, and that stayed open. And then we just reopened Watts a couple of weeks ago. And then we have a store in Compton. So those 3 locations are open right now. And I encourage people, to go try it out, support your love of the food. I've been eating it. I got a subscription myself. So I've been trying everything, and everything has been, delicious. Hats off to our culinary team, because it's not easy. We went from making about 20 to 30,000 meals a week in March to now, doing almost 150,000 meals a week and continuing to grow. We're a grab and go concept, which makes us, we're always set up that way. So that makes it advantageous, particularly when you think about COVID right now, right? Yeah. So, and even moving forward. So yeah, man, excited to see, like I said, I've been blessed to be alongside folks, and Sam is one of them, Magic is one of them, like, who have a vision to do something that has not been done, and they see it, and they're just diligent and consistent on going after it. And that's what you need, and getting the right people around you that believe in it. So you guys can accomplish something, that excites me, doing stuff that hasn't been done and people say can't been done. There's people been saying for a while that, healthier food should be accessible and should be affordable. Why is fast food so cheap? Why is that something that's, prominent around, not obviously in our underserved neighborhoods, but around this country? And so, the real vision is to take this, not only grow this obviously here in LA, but just to grow this, across the country and nationally.
Yeah. And I spoke to an entrepreneur a few months ago who really drove home the point that folks need to vote with their dollars. You like healthy options being accessible in the community, then support the entities that around that are offering that, right? Because if one company is able to demonstrate proof of concept, then inevitably others will follow, right? And so then you create a much more diverse food ecosystem in the community that's not just centered around fast food, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And you said something too about, where we spend our dollars and voting with our dollars, which is extremely important. And most people are followers, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is why you see very few people who do something that hasn't been done. And I've been able to see, like, hey, once you prove something, then, it'll get replicated and people will follow along afterwards.
The 4-minute mile, right?
Yeah.
Nobody could do it until it was done. Now
until it was done. Or you think about, like, I was in those rooms and those conversations when people didn't want to come to South LA, and places where we built Starbucks, and people would say, well, why would you build a store there? Nobody's going to support it. The one on Western and Slauson is one of those, for those folks from LA that are listening. The one on Western and Slauson is an example. I mean, that store, we had to fight to put that store there, even though it was a huge new development, which you were a part of, you told me in previous conversation.
Home Depot.
And that store actually, if people know where it is, it used to be where the Walgreens is on that corner cap. Mm-hmm. And it did so well, like the first month, that the landlord paid for it to go where it is now and build that drive-through. And
that's
so
it's fantastic.
So you have a vision, like, you can't wait for everybody to validate it.
You cannot. Otherwise you never do anything, right?
Right.
So, and a lot of restaurants, have a high failure rate. Depending on the source you believe, that number can range anywhere from 17 to 60% that fail in year one, but the vast majority never make it to year 5. Everytable is now 5 years old and is poised to expand, which is obviously why they have brought you on. At the beginning of the year, they received a $2.5 million investment to help support the efforts to create franchise opportunities for entrepreneurs from marginalized communities. And that's really, I think, your focus over as you come on board in creating that pathway, right? So can you speak a little bit about what that vision is for the future and where you hope to see this going, as being not only a way to deliver healthier options and high quality food in places where it wasn't before, but really as an agent for stimulating economic development in those communities as well?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I mean, this is another thing that we have a vision for that hasn't been done. Like you said, the part of being able to provide, healthier food and throughout our communities is, one thing that excites me. But the other piece is that the social equity franchise program, this is going to be our retail strategy, going forward. And so we want to provide economic opportunity and growth and mobility for those who have been systemically and traditionally and historically left out. So if you understand the franchise model, what we're doing here is that, we are not requiring any upfront capital or net worth. We're providing Everytable University training, but also folding in there leadership development classes, entrepreneurship training, like what does it take to be an entrepreneur and what are some of the ups and downs of that and how does an entrepreneur think, to how do you deal with and unpack some of the trauma that may be preventing you from showing up and being your best self. Unfortunately, we've dealt with so much that we normalize dysfunction, right? And we don't see how it plays out in us being the best that we can be. So that's going to be part of the training that we provide for those franchise candidates. And so we're mitigating the barriers of entry, but also mitigating a lot of the risk that happens with franchising, which could be bankruptcy risk, not having that capital, which we know that, if you talk about the racial wealth gap, which was, created on purpose and is impacting us even more so. And to this day, particularly now, if you sit in the middle of COVID, we know a lot of folks have lost their jobs and have lost their net worth, the little net worth that we've had. Yeah. And so how do you, create an opportunity for folks not only to provide healthier options and healthier food in their community, but also to grow themselves and from that being able to grow their family and their community. And so that's what this program will be about. Over the next 2 years, we want to open 50 of the social equity franchise locations throughout LA County. And we have our first actually that'll be opening up in November. And that candidate, thank you. And that candidate is somebody that's internal. And so I'm just excited, man. I'm excited. I'm a servant, man. And I'm just excited about always thinking about how I can provide opportunities and help people grow themselves and their families. So that's the position that I always take. Like, how can I be better so I can help other folks be better and grow?
1,000%. And so for folks who are interested in that, how do they go about exploring and learning more about the opportunities at Everytable?
Great question. So right now we're creating all the marketing materials and it'll be up on our website early next month. So our website is everytable.com. It's not up now, but within about a month, it'll be up and people can send, inquire about, all the details. And if it's something they're interested in, that information you'll be able to contact us.
As you view your role and kind of the landscape, in your opinion, what's the most challenging part of the execution over the next 12 to 18 months? And what excites you the most about that opportunity?
Yeah, I think the like you said, the most challenging is just the, unpredictability of, COVID, right? And, everyone's, has their opinions on when things will change, when things will turn around, but nobody really knows, man. Like everybody's just kind of guessing, estimating, right?
Yeah.
So how do you, still plan and move forward and understanding that there's going to be, unpredictability, but for me, just personally, that's like I talked about earlier when I started with restaurants, that's something that I thrive in. I'm still able to, stay grounded and focus and move forward and understanding that, you can only control what you can control, right?
Yeah.
Like bottom line. And what also keeps me motivated is, like I said, is I've been, extremely blessed and so many people have poured into me. Throughout the years, whether it's my family members, whether it's been people, that I work with, leaders, mentors. So I feel like I'm always, looking at it from perspective, like I said, from the servant leadership, like I am always excited and motivated by how do I continue to make sure that I'm, helping people grow and be successful. And so when I have those days, which we all do, have those days of doubt, or you feel less enthusiastic because of what's going on right now, I'll think of that and also think of what our ancestors had to deal with, which is a whole lot more than what we have to right now. And so, and how did they continue to move forward? Understanding that what you're doing and the seeds that you're planting, we live in a culture now where a lot of people want instant gratification, but the fact of the matter is, what are you doing right now that is going to make the world better when you're not here? So a lot of this stuff, you may not see, but that doesn't excuse you from doing the work, because our young people and our people in general are depending on us. So if you sit in a space where you have any type of, power and influence, I feel like you're obligated to try to help those who haven't had those same opportunities and chances that you have. Because once everybody is thriving, then, we thrive as a whole. That's how I look at it too. Like, so I had this conversation yesterday with my son. I was like, hey, man, I mean, if you understand from a business perspective, like, racism and discrimination, if you want to talk to those people who only see things in dollars, if you think from a return on investment, if you don't have, you're not providing opportunities for everybody to be at their best, no matter what they look like, their sexual orientation, whatever, then you're mitigating the success of us as humanity.
Yeah. And as a business operator, right? You're making a willful choice to have suboptimal returns because of some bias that you're bringing to the table.
No, I want all ideas and expertise and talent and intelligence at the table, because I've never, and I definitely, as I gotten older, don't need to figure out everything and don't know everything. That's not. Yeah. I don't have that ego problem. So.
that's probably why you've done as well as you have done, and why you're going to continue to be successful with Everytable and everything you do moving forward.
Oh, thank you.
It sounds like you have your why is in alignment with your purpose, right? And
yeah, I appreciate it.
So that to me, that's everything.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. We're only here for a minute, so. You better have a purpose.
That's it, brother. Well, hopefully if we get better access to healthy eating, we can be here for a little bit longer than a minute. We can maximize that minute, brother. So, hey, man, I appreciate your time. Highly informative, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you, and appreciate you reaching out and doing what you do as well. I mean, telling me stories is so important that we share information.
For sure.
That we're constantly learning as well.
100%. And if there's any way that I can help use my platform moving forward to advance the work that you're doing, it's a phone call, man. I really believe in what you're doing. It's much needed, long overdue, and I'm excited that somebody like yourself is really front and center in the space, carving out the change.
Thanks a lot, man.
So that wraps up our conversation with Chef Bryce Fluellen. Once again, this is Matthew Gates with In the Building LA, your online source for news and information on the people, projects, and policies reshaping our community.